Today, I had the privilege and honor to have Emerson, my architect for the passive house that we have been building for the last 280 years. And what a great opportunity for us to go through the lessons that we had learned, everything that we want to pass on to you guys so you don't make the same mistakes. What is the biggest takeaway from when we started the design process, and what lesson? What are the main lessons that we learned when we were doing that design phase? What do you think?
I think from the design phase was the importance of preparing everything before, because what we found as we went along, there's a selection of SIP systems and that kind of thing. There are actually several other methods that you could employ at that stage, but it's preparation.
Absolutely. Absolutely, I think we obviously it's always been a learning curve. It's our first project doing the passive house, and there was a lot of components and elements that we had to plan ahead, and it was I think for the next project I would say now that we have the full picture, we can do definitely better. On that front.
Absolutely. I think things like the foundation, for example, we needed to select a particular type of foundation because of a passive house detail. So all of these items prepared in advance really does make a difference.
Does make a huge difference. So in advance, especially when we're importing items from abroad. I think one of the key elements as well, or the key lessons learned, is allow more time for critical items. We had the staircase coming from Colombia, the decking coming from Colombia. It took longer than expected. So allow a lot of time in your program for those critical items, because if you don't do it right at the start of the project, then you're going to suffer later on, right? You're going to pay the consequences. That's one of the things. I think the other lesson that we can share with our audience was about the airtightness. We went with one solution, which was actually quite costly, putting the extra layer, putting the extra timber as well, and that, I think that was very difficult for the workers to do and to get right, especially when it has so many angles and things. And there's this product, I think it's called intelligent layers or something similar, that where they spray the whole house and they create this extra layer, this film, that is airtight, so it's a lot easier and much faster to build. So something like that, I think for our next project we will consider, right?
Yes, I think what the difference was with it's more to do with whether these projects were already certified and that kind of thing. So it's at the time that we were doing the design for it, we had the product of the airtight layers. This particular product became available from that process. We sort of found that product. But there's so many products out there that we could utilize that have been certified recently, and we can look at it differently from the next projects. As
this technology, let's say, grows, then we can look at different products and look at the pros and cons and assess. But I think personally, that took longer as well, and something that is quicker to install and is equally efficient. Then I think we can we can utilize. And the other thing that I think we can also learn from was the air tightness, as in the person that came and did the test, and we learned from the start that there was a lot of areas where the house was leaking as such air, and I think critical that we plan those so well, and and then we can get this person booked to look, let's say, for after the first fix, and then after the second fix, and just before the house is finished, so we can we can learn and see where the house is leaking exactly, and make the right amendments. Because if you do it so later, at a later stage, then you end up opening up and making it more difficult, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the key items of preparation. Well, it's difficult enough in a normal build, but with a passive house is extra layers of complex junctions and details and windows. You know, fortunately for us, we had, you know, a great supplier with us, and and the team who did the job. I think it was a difficult baptism of fire, really. You know, designing a passive house it takes a different level of skill. You know, it's more of a craftsmanship.
Yes, it is.
You know, rather than, you know, like a standard build.
Absolutely.
So, and all these elements, when they take shape, they need to take shape all in one form for it to perform the best. And that's one of the big lessons. You know, we need to really prepare. You know, for all eventualities.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, allocate. You know, I think you know, the in terms of budget costs and stuff, contingencies for all these, you know, definitely much higher than a normal, let's say, house.
Yeah.
Because of all the extra, you know, let's say, layers and the extra designs that you need to carry out. So yeah, I think it's critical for our listeners to know that they need to allocate a little bit more for contingency, because of the extra complications compared to a normal sort of traditional house, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the other key thing, like we touched on earlier, is getting these specialists. You know, these guys who do their tightness tests, speaking to manufacturers. You know, the producers of installations. You know, you really get this group of people together at a very early stage in design. So then you can get the correct advice, you know, with reharvesting of water tanks and, you know, that kind of thing. You know, so it's good idea to get your if you are going for the passive house, you know, get your passive house designer, you know, to really get a global picture of what you're going to do before going on site.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Right from the start, I think, you know, planning so well ahead. Get the people that have done it before. Get all the certification, everything right ahead of always step ahead, isn't it? Always a step ahead of that. But let's discuss about what we did right. You know, because it's obviously all the lessons learned, but what we actually did well and the decisions that we made at the beginning. I'll share one, if I may. I think one of the things that we did really, really good was to have good records all throughout. Especially with the 360-degree camera by a company called Open Space, you know, taking those pictures throughout the construction phase has allowed us to make decisions on where to put pipes, you know, where to put all the M&E, and have, you know, really good records for building control, not only for building control but also for our records for maintenance. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that I really recommend to our audience, just to get that really good records, especially these 360-degree cameras. I think we did really well. We also did really well on the ground. We got a really good subcontractor that basically came out with a VA solution, and you know, we save a lot of money on that, which was great. You know, because compared to what the original design was to what we actually end up doing, it's about 40%, you know, on a processed concrete solution, much efficient in terms of, you know, time, quicker to install, and also we save a lot of money in concrete and steel, haven't we? So I think that is a really good move that we did there as well. We did really well as well at bringing you, obviously, and Passive House certified architect at different stages of the project. Don't you think important to have that? Yeah,
it was very important. I think, obviously, to achieve a passive house, you need to have, you know, those designers. You know, you need to have. It's a process of elimination. You need to tick off the requirements for a passive house as you go along. And again, I keep going back to how important it is to capture all these things at design stage before it gets to site. So once it's on site, it's a lot of tradesmen actually are becoming passive house trained tradesmen. If you can find tradesmen already with that certificate, that's a big plus as well.
No brainer.
If you can find your airtightness testing guys, if you can form a team right in the beginning, your journey is going to be a bit more ordered and organized.
Absolutely. And lastly, one of the things that all the audience, all the people that are listening to this, is keep really good communication with building control. Right at the beginning of our journeys, we sent out the drawings, and they missed a critical item. It was the firefighting. And when they did a site visit, one of the inspectors highlighted the fact that we didn't have a firefighting system, and we were under the impression that was needed, but there was a miscommunication between that team. Luckily, at that stage, we were able to come up with a solution, which was the intelligent mist. That would otherwise have been very, very, expensive to do if it was a later stage. But that close communication with the control, I think, is quite important, isn't it? At every given stage, to get the you get the certificates that you need at the end of the day, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's crucial to start speaking to your building control officer, whether it's local authority or private. It's a very early design stage as well. Obviously, they're going to accompany the project from that design stage right the way through to completion. So it's good to get them on board.
100%.